Calix Boxing 2.0. Welcome back. It's been a 9-day break, and let me explain in a minute why there was a 9-day break. Several reasons, but oh man, we've talked in good length on this channel as to the sport of boxing being on the spectrum. Sometimes you just got to sit back and laugh. You just got to laugh. You have to have a sense of humor in order to follow a sport like boxing. You can't take yourself too seriously. Shout out Chauncey Pearls. As y'all come in, please hit that like button and please leave a comment as to who you are. Leave a comment, throw comments out there, man, because this will be a comment show. Throw your comments out there. Throw your opinions out there, and there's no wrong opinion. Throw your opinion out there, and let's talk. Let's just chat today. Let's have some fun. Let's kick back and just say, you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. Like, I learned that in life. Sometimes you just got to kick back, sit back, and look at the shambles around you when things just aren't going right and say, you know what? It just is what it is. I got to roll with the punches. And it's going to be this type of show because my mom in her great wisdom used to always tell me, you know, sometimes you just got to, it is what it is, right? Like it literally is what it is. You can't think about where things should be, where things would be had I done this. You deal with reality. You deal with the choices that you have going forward, and you try to make the best of it. It literally is what it is at this point, and particularly with boxing. We've taken some off-ramps, and there are no on-ramps when it comes to boxing on certain things. And I'll go into greater detail on that. Hawker Mustang, appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming through. I can't believe there are fans out there saying to cancel the fight, suspend Ben, and this and that. LOL. And look, people can have their own opinions, and they're entitled to their own opinions on that. I've been counterintuitive on this subject for a while now. And there are reasons why I've been counterintuitive on this is because, you know, I try to look at things realistically, one, and number two, I have some experiences behind the scenes when it comes to this topic. One in particular that I'll talk about in a little bit, but I just think timing is everything. There's a reason. Look, this A sample didn't just fall at somebody's lap this morning. That's not what happened here, fellas. This A sample came sometime in December, I'm guessing. Somebody's been sitting on this for a while looking for the perfect timing to drop it and get some concessions. That's how these things work. So I just say, let the dude get his concessions. If Chris Eubank Jr. is fine fighting the dude struggling with female infertility, let him fight the dude struggling with female infertility as long as the dude struggling with female infertility is fine with coming off of a couple $100,000 of concessions. And being fine conceding, hey, instead of 157, I'll let you come full middleweight limit 160. I'll let you rehydrate Chavez Jr. style to 180, cruiserweight fight night. Have your concessions if you want the fight. I want the fight. Let's do it. I just think you let the men handle it behind the scenes. But these dudes out here who are naive, gullible enough to think that if you suspend Conor Benn in this situation, that if the British board does the right thing, Eddie Hearn does the right thing and suspends Conor Benn, that all of a sudden Al Heyman will become an angel. The WBO, WBCA, WBA, IBF, New York State Athletic Commission, Las Vegas Commission, Nevada Commission, California Commission, the Texas Commission, etc., Bob Arum, they're all going to be angels now, since in this case, Eddie Hearn was an angel. In the British boxing was an angel. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I couldn't stand his old man. Now I hate his ass too. Eddie Hearn just exposed himself as the biggest snake in boxing. No. You're wrong on that. They're all snakes. That's what people need to understand. People need to get that. Eddie Hearn is out there eating crow today because just recently he said, hey, what are we doing drug testing for? If a fighter gets popped for testing positive, all we have to do is make some concessions and the fight still goes on. What are we doing VAD drug testing for anyway? VAD is the best drug testing out there. If a guy gets popped for VAD drug testing, the fight should not go on. Now Eddie Hearn wants the fight to go on. But I'm telling you, this isn't just specific to Eddie Hearn. It's not an Eddie Hearn problem. And I know this for a fact because I dealt with it 10 years ago with Al Heyman and the PBC, New York State Athletic Commission, etc., etc. Eric Morales, boxing writers, boxing journalists, dealt with it. They're all snakes. Top to bottom, all snakes. And this is my main point is, where do you guys want to go with this? Where do you want to go with this? Before I get into that, let's just try to get to some of these comments. I appreciate y'all coming through. His dad still owes Gerald McClellan. Big John Fury was right. Eddie never cared about fighter safety. None of them do. None of them do. None of them care about fighter safety. They care about their pocketbooks. And that's all of them. That's not just the promoters, not the managers, not the network execs. It's the journalists. They care about their pocketbooks too. They care about their clickbait. It's old media. It's new media. It's the boxing fans. It's the boxing fans. The number one question boxing fans are asking right now, as they did when we broke the Danny Garcia, Eric Morales story a decade ago, is the fight still on? Is the fight still on? It's the number one question people are. So people can be out there virtue signaling. Lou DiBella's out there virtue signaling. St. Lou, he's out there virtue signaling. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Lou DiBella had Jermaine Taylor, who was out there brandishing guns, pointing them at people, clearly off in the head, clearly crying on camera, clearly had CTE. He strolled him out there for paydays, knowing he had CTE. But he's a saint. None of them care about fighter safety. None of them. They're just virtue signaling. If they let a fight with a guy coming in 1.6 pounds overweight, why not steroids? F it. First mid-fight gender reveal. The rehydration clause must be scraped and it's good to go. What's up, brother? Boxing is frustrating sport to follow. Eubank is like, I'm not let this bag get away. That's right. Don't let the bag get away. Legalize all drugs, recreational and supposed PEDs. And look, man, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know what the right answer is. All I'm telling you is the current road we're going down. Do you think that's the right answer? Like the wink, 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 wink. Yeah, you tested positive, but we'll keep doing what we're doing. I don't know, man. Everybody's going to act up in arms. Everybody's going to be virtue signaling right now. So for those who have been under a rock, Conor Benn tested positive for Clomid. For those not familiar with Clomid, I know about this drug because this is what Barry Bonds tested positive for back in, I believe it was either 2001, 2001, 2003, or 2006. One of his multiple failed drug tests was for Clomid. And what Clomid does is basically when your balls shrink due to performance-enhancing drugs, steroids, this helps your testosterone back to where your balls get back to normal size. Your testosterone is back to normal levels or even elevated levels. It's also known as, they had the clean and clear, all that good stuff. This helps to clear your system when it comes to drug testing. Cycle on, cycle off. And what happened here was Conor Benn clearly didn't do the cycle on, cycle off process correctly. These guys pay these mad scientists a good bit of money to make sure they're doing the cycle on, cycle off process properly. They're not testing positive for these performance-enhancing drugs. I was told one of the reasons that fighters are so inactive these days is because they can cycle off in time for their fight. And by the time they fight, they still have the benefits of the performance-enhancing drug without testing positive for the performance-enhancing drug. That's how much of a skill these guys have it down to, cycling on, cycling off. So when it comes to Clomid, it has multiple benefits. One of the benefits is it clears out your system when it comes to drug testing. From what I understand, it also it helps you to recover from the cycling on process, helps you regain testosterone, helps your balls grow back to normal size. So what I'm saying in this situation is, first, let's talk about why the past 9 days I haven't been doing as much on here. I haven't done anything. And one of the reasons is, man, I was told by a great man one time, don't bleed on people. Just don't bleed on people. Don't be overly negative. And I've had people who I also do content with tell me, look, you need to reel it in a little bit. You're getting a little too negative. Be a little positive. I know you love the sport, so I didn't want to be too negative. I knew early last week, I was told by good sources that Errol Spence versus Crawford wasn't happening in 2022. I was frustrated with that, but I didn't want to come on and talk negatively about that. And on top of that, the Boo Boo Andre news that Boo Boo Andre pulled out of the Zach Parker fight again for the first time in history that I can recall. A dude pulled out of a fight with the same fighter twice within a year. And on top of that, before pulling out of a fight with that fighter twice, he avoided the same fighter twice in the same process. I think that's unprecedented. I've never seen that. The dude avoided Yanabek twice within a year and pulled out of the Zach Parker fight twice within a year. Add that to the Spence Crawford news. The welterweight division, 147 being a division full of dudes just not fighting. Add that to Lee Wood pulling out of the Lara fight, not providing medical records as to why he's pulling out. It's just been a mess. It's been a mess. This is a sport on the spectrum, and I don't want to be too negative, man. I want to be on here, and there's going to be a pivot when it comes to this channel. That way I'm not too negative. There's going to be a different form of content coming, a lot more editing, a lot more videos, probably less lives, because when I get on here, I notice that I just go off on these rants and these tangents, and it may become too negative for people. I don't know. But I just see some of this stuff, man, and I just, it's more of the reaction to this stuff that bothers me. Here's a question that I'll pose to the chat, and I'll pose to the people watching in the archives. We're in a plague of inactivity when it comes to boxing. I've talked in length about if you take the top 50 pound-for-pound box rec fighters, they're fighting on average once per year. Do you know how many times the top 10 Ring Magazine pound-for-pound fighters fought in 1997? 28. If you take the top 10 pound-for-pound Ring Magazine fighters in 1997, they fought a combined 28 times. Oscar De La Hoya was the Ring Magazine pound-for-pound fighter of the year in 1997, and he fought 5 times that year. 5. The following year, Floyd Mayweather was the Ring Magazine fighter of the year, and he fought 7 times. 7. Won a legitimate title against Genaro Hernandez and defended it 2 months later against Angel Manfredi. Just a phenomenal year. I want somebody to put in the chat, how many times, if you take the Ring Magazine top 10 pound-for-pound fighters, according to the Ring Magazine, top 10 pound-for-pound fighters, how many times have they fought this year? We're 10 months in. How many times have they fought this year combined? Y'all take a stab at it in the chat. I'll wait. Top 10 Ring Magazine pound-for-pound fighters. Top 10. How many times have they fought combined this year? Take a stab in the chat. Take a stab at it. Wheelchair Man John says 10. Close, but that's not it. Close. Close. It's not 10, but you're close. But that's how inactive these dudes are. 12,575 3. No, it's not that either. It's not 7. It's not 6. It's 9. 9. We're in month 10. In the top 10 Ring Magazine pound for pound fighters have fought a combined 9 times. I put up this graphic on my podcast in the past. You take the top 10 welterweight fighters this year, top 10 welterweights in the world, 7 of them are undefeated. 7. Now, there are 2 ways to look at that, and I can tell what type of fan you are by how you react to that. If you react to it and say, man, that's a talented division. Look at all the undefeated fighters. That's the wrong way to look at it, in my opinion. The right way to look at that is not fighting each other. They're not fighting each other. I think that Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford will get made January, February. I think that's when the fight date will be. Just my opinion. Not going to happen in 2022, but I think Al Heyman knows that everybody's watching him when it comes to this. I think the fight has to get made. I think it has to. But the fact that we're 320-something days into Terrence Crawford's promotional free agency, that's 320-something days to where he and PBC have had to come to some sort of agreement. And that fight is not made yet. And on top of that, for almost 5 years, going on 5 years, we've been told if Terrence Crawford crosses the street, that's all he's got to do is cross the damn street and go talk to Al, and he'll have the fight. As Ring IQ said in his video last week, what makes this difficult is you dudes with less than 2 brain cells to rub together have been talking bad about Terrence Crawford for years, for 4 or 5 years. Now all of a sudden you want to talk highly of him because you want this fight to be huge. Doesn't work that way. But on top of that, we've been told for 4 or 5 years, it's Bob Arum's fault. He's over there. Al's over here. Once Bud leaves Bob Arum, we can make that fight. And now we have 320-something days of Bud not being with Bob, and we still don't have a fight. Still don't have a fight. But I say all that to say this. We have a division locked up because the top 2 guys for 5 years haven't fought each other. We have guys underneath them at the same level of their career, undefeated, that we're being told can't fight each other. And I'm being told this by fanagers. It's not coming from the promoters and the managers and the network execs. It's coming from them, but I get that from them. I understand why they say that. I'm being told this by other fans. I'm being told to shut up. Boots and Virgil cannot fight each other. Shut up about it. It's too early. They can't fight each other. They're both undefeated. They can't fight each other. Stop asking for it. So who the hell is going to fight each other? Who's going to fight somebody? Boots and Virgil can't fight each other. Cody Crowley can't fight anybody. God, what the hell happened to Cody Crowley? Where'd he go? Is he in witness protection in Lake Tahoe? Where'd he go? Where in the hell is Cody Crowley? Where'd he go? Keith Thurman is still somewhere under a tree playing his damn flute, not fighting anybody. Talking, calling himself Keith Thurman, talking about how Keith Thurman is the greatest fighter in the history of the world, sitting under a tree doing Tantra yoga, playing a flute. Who in the hell is going to fight somebody in the welterweight division? So finally, we get Conor Benn versus Eubank Jr. And I hated it when it was first signed. Hated it. Why can't the welterweight fight the top welterweights? Why can't the middleweight fight the top middleweights? For the love of God, these are 2 sexy traditional divisions. Why can't welterweights Why can't top welterweights fight top welterweights? Why can't top middleweights fight top middleweights? What in the hell is happening? I feel like Jerry Seinfeld. What is the deal? What is the deal with the welterweight division? But what's going on? Finally, I say, you know what? It's a grudge match, family business, big fight over in the UK. I'm fine with it now. I'm actually excited about it. Actually, quite excited about it. Catch weight, do it. Nobody else is doing anything anyway. Do it. So we have one active welterweight. One. Errol Spence, nothing going on. I'm told that fight's still gonna happen. Just wait. We likely have a Canelo Plant situation to where the fight still happens, but Al's just slow marinating it, building it. It's just gonna happen 2 or 3 months later than planned. Fine. But as of right now, Errol Spence is laid up. Nothing going on. Driving his Ferraris around on his big plot of land. Nothing going on. Terrence Crawford, the middle of the cornfields in Nebraska, nothing going on. Yordenis Ugas just got cleared, but nothing going on. Virgil Ortiz just took a 14-month break, had some health issues, but nothing going on. Nothing happening. Boots Ennis, 4 minutes of work this year. Nothing going on. Keith Thurman, like I said, he's doing yoga, playing his flute under the tree. Nothing going on. Stanionis, nothing since April. Nothing. Cody Crowley, nothing for a while. Nothing planned. Evan Nation, nothing planned. The one fighter that had something planned in the whole division is now testing positive for a female infertility drug. Because, of course, we can't have anything nice. Finally, we had a welterweight about to fight. Finally, we're about to get it. We're 3 days away. I wake up, read my emails, then I go over to Twitter. After I do some stretching, go over to Twitter, scroll down. Conor Benn tests positive for female infertility drug. God damn it. Son of a bitch. Finally, we had somebody doing something, and this dude had to test positive for a female infertility drug. Son of a bitch. We were 3 days away from a welterweight about to fight finally. And he goes and tests positive for a female infertility drug. Son of a bitch. That's boxing. And this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm getting to. Is like you just have to sit back sometimes and say, it is what it is. This is where we are. It's a clown show. The sport is on the spectrum. I got to take the best I can get at this point. I got to live in reality. I got to live in Realville and take the best I can get at this point. And to me, the best we can get is realizing that there's no such thing as precedent in boxing. If Eddie Hearn, the British board, go out and say, look, we can't have this. We got to have a clean sport. Let's get rid of the other commissions, the other promotional agencies, the other managers are not going to follow. They're not. If that's what you think is going to happen, I got some real estate in Antarctica I'd love to sell you. I'd love to sell it to you. That's what you think. Let the dudes talk it out. Let Chris Eubank Jr. have his concessions. Let Chris Eubank Jr. call Conor Benn. Because I'm told the conversation didn't actually happen, but let him call him. Let Chris call him and say, laugh at him, troll a little bit like, you stupid, you idiot. Female infertility drug, Clomid. Like, dude, you didn't get that stuff out of your system already? Really? You didn't get this out of your system? Dude, we're 3 days. How done? Like, everybody's doing this. Everybody's doing this stuff. You didn't get it out your system? So let Chris clown him a little bit and then say, hey, I have a resolution here. That 157, yeah, that's not happening anymore. It's not happening. We're doing full middleweight limit 160. That rehydration clause, yeah, that's not happening either. That's not happening either, Connor. 167, no. You know what the new weight is? Whatever the hell I want it to be. That's what the new weight is. We're going Chavez Jr. weight here. And look, it goes back to what I said. I think there's a reason Chris Eubank Jr. has been so nonchalant about the weight, right? Remember the video last week of him eating steak at the steakhouse and just laughing in the camera? This A sample happened back in September. They don't just do this the week of the fight. So this was Chris Eubank Jr. throwing some subliminal shots at Conor Benn. Like, I know what you did. I know what you did. Look at me eating this steak. 157. Yeah, right. 157. Yeah. 167 rehydration? No. Look at me eat this steak. And shout out to ITR Boxing. Shout out to you and everybody in the comments, man. My apologies that I'm on a rift and I have a certain amount of time, so I don't want to lose my train of thought. But this was the last comment that came up. Love ITR Boxing. But there's a reason I know this stuff, and it's from experience. I worked for Hailstorm Sports. Shout out D-Style, shout out Hailstorm. We worked together at Hailstorm Sports. This was back in 2012. A story fell in our lap. It's not like we were doing some great investigative journalist work. That's not what was happening. I wasn't young Matlock out there, as some dudes in the new media call themselves, investigating things and found it. No, it fell in our lap. Eric Morales tested positive for a banned substance on his A sample before the Danny Garcia fight. And 2 days before the fight, we broke the story. And when I say a story fell in our lap, generally what happens here is an A sample doesn't just pop up a couple days before a fight. That's not how this works. And I don't think a lot of fans know how this stuff works. That's not how this works. The A sample is generally weeks before the fight, and it's known. So what happened in that case was somebody reached out to us and said, you know what? Eric Morales tested positive for something. Do what you want with it. Do what you want with it. He tested positive. I'm just letting you know he tested positive. So shout out Hailstorm. In his knowledge, he said, we can't just run with that. As well as I know this person, we're close friends, all that good stuff. And I know they know this for a fact. We got to get other sources. So we reached out to more, got a second source, a third source, and the third source reached out to somebody who was high up. And they laughed and said, how in the hell do you know that? And that was our cue to run with it. But that failed A sample was not supposed to see the light of day before the fight. So I'm assuming the same thing happened in this case. And that was a teachable moment for me a decade ago with this whole thing. When it comes to every level of boxing, more on that in a minute. But just to attach it to this, I'm sure what happened here was everybody involved knew about this A sample weeks ago. Just assuming that from knowledge and just instincts. But also, I'm assuming somebody from Chris Eubank Jr.'s camp reached out to somebody in the media and said, please break this story so we can get our concessions, so we can renegotiate this fight. It's been well known the 157 with the 167 rehydration clause has not been and this is the big question here, is the BBBOC going to let the fight happen if the Daily Mail didn't report the story? And I have to assume yes. And the reason, I'm glad you asked this question, before we broke that story, I reached out to the New York State Athletic Commission and said, I need you on record for our story. We're breaking the story that Eric Morales tested positive for a banned substance. And we didn't know what the banned substance was at the time. We just knew he tested positive. We're breaking this story. I need you on the record. I need somebody on the record from the New York State Athletic Commission saying, what do you think about this? And their official comment to me was, we don't know anything about it. Now, you can read whatever you want into that. You can read that they're being honest, that Eric Morales tested positive before his fight with Danny Garcia, an A sample that had been out there for weeks, and the New York State Athletic Commission knew nothing about it. Or the New York State Athletic Commission may have known something about it, had to come out with that comment because they didn't want knowledge out there that they knew about it and didn't put it out there. I don't know. I'm not with the New York State Athletic Commission, so I don't know which one it is. So in this case, the BBBOC, did they know about this? Did they know? Did they not know? Was this going to be swept under the rug? And what I'm telling you is I know from 10 years ago dealing with this that the promoters, the managers, the advisors, they sweep this stuff under the rug. They have comfy, cozy relationships with these drug testing bodies. And my whole point with this is the same comment that Eddie Hearn made last week that Eddie Hearn is now backtracking on is, what's the point of doing drug testing if all that's going to happen is this is swept under the rug? I mean, just look at the Eric Morales situation. Eric Morales tests positive. Danny Garcia negotiates, gets his concessions, and says, and I'm not going to reveal the sources and where they came from, but he got his concessions that he wanted. He got a couple, 6 figures, well into the 6 figures, extra for fighting an 80-year-old Eric Morales. He wasn't scared. Eric Morales could have been juiced to the gills. He didn't care. He knew he was going to beat him. He got his concessions. He got more money. Eric Morales, people forget about it days later. On top of that, all the fans were asking us as they were raking us over the coals when we broke the story because nobody else was confirming this story. And on top of that, the people involved with the negotiations in the fight were calling us crazy and saying, you're too small to break this story, just hoping that everybody would drop it. Other journalists come along, start doing investigative work, and realize that this story is true and don't give us credit for breaking the story. Dan Raphael. And that's what happens. But the questions that I started to ask after that, and I've been asking them for 10 years, and I've been called anti-fighter once again, is what the hell is the point of the drug testing if a dude pops positive for drug testing and he's still able to fight? On top of that, Eric Morales goes into the Hall of Fame, which, by the way, I have no problem with. No problem with. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, Eric Morales, Shane Mosley, put them in their sports Hall of Fame. They were great at what they did. But my point is there were no consequences and repercussions other than those concessions right before the fight. So what are we doing here? And on top of that, it's well known if you look at this, the drug testing can't keep up with the mad scientists getting around the drug testing that are being paid 7 figures by these athletes for their services to teach these fighters and advise them how to get around the drug testing with blood transfusions, the clears, Clomid. If taken right, and I've been told by an insider that the only way you're testing positive is if you're either careless or dumb. Careless or dumb. And on top of that, the fighter who tests positive is just going to make some sort of excuse as to why they tested positive. And then life goes on. Andre Berto, right? He got something over the counter at GNC. Canelo, tainted meat. But for me, I don't care. Like, I just want to see an entertaining sport, and I'm not gullible at this point. I realize that we have a very dirty sport here. This is not a pure sport. And it's always been my criticism of the baseball purists. They're out there after Aaron Judge hits his 62nd home run last night. And what are they saying? Oh, we have a real home run champion now. Roger Maris Jr. is out there saying, oh, we have a real home run champion now. And my question for Roger Maris Jr. would be, how many Latin American baseball players was your dad or your grandpa, whoever he is, Roger Maris Sr., who was he playing against? How many Latin American players? There was never, ever, ever a pure period in baseball history. The steroid era, which we're still in, by the way, to the gullible people out there, the gullible baseball purists, still in the steroid era. We were heavy in it early 2000s into the 90s. Dudes were coked out of their mind on the field in the 80s. Babe Ruth was playing against 100% white dudes. I mean, just think about that. Pitchers who were a couple of shades darker than Babe Ruth were not allowed to pitch to Babe Ruth. And that was a pure era, according to baseball purists. Roger Maris played against 9% black players, 7% Latin American players, and that was a pure era. Give me a break. Give me a freaking break. We're at 27% Latin American players right now, and Roger Maris was playing in a pure era. But my whole point is, for the people out there saying that we finally have a home run champion in Aaron Judge, and the Tooth Fairy is real, and the Easter Bunny is real as well. And when it comes to drug testing, are we going in the opposite direction of our intentions? One of the great thinkers of the past century, I think arguably the best Thomas Sowell, once said, today's problems, most of today's problems are due to yesterday's solutions. So are our solutions when it comes to drugs and boxing, are they causing us more problems? And I'll just give you a specific example. I threw out the fact of these mad scientists being hired, getting paid well into the 6 figures, 7 figures, to advise these wealthy athletes, wealthy boxers, how to skate past positive drug tests. Do the poor fighters have these same benefits? Do they? So I'm not saying what's wrong, what's right, what direction we should go into, but I'll just throw this question out for the chat. Would we be closer to equity when it comes to this issue? Will we be closer to an equal playing field if we continue to go down this direction, or if we get rid of drug testing altogether in boxing? Which one would get us closer? I'm just throwing it out there because it needs to be in the hopper. It needs to be a question that people need to ask and answer. I'm just asking this to the wizards of smart out there because they're smarter than me. I want to know what do they think about that? Because this war on drugs and boxing, where's it getting us? As Eddie Hearn said a couple weeks ago, remember the Bob Arum quote? I was lying yesterday. I'm telling the truth today. But Eddie Hearn a couple weeks ago is saying, what's the point? He's asking the same question that I was asking a decade ago. And I was raked over the coals for as anti-fighter for asking, and I'm still asking the same question: is what's the point of drug testing? What's the point of it if a fighter is just going to come up with any excuse, he's going to be believed, or wink, wink, he's not, but who cares? And the fight still goes on. The fighter still goes on to get his accolades later on, no punishment. If he is a slap on the wrist, what's the point of it? What's the point of it? And for the people who want this fight canceled, do you really think this is going to set a precedent going forward? Do you really think the other managers, promoters, are you really that gullible to think that the other managers, promoters, network execs lawyers are going to say, look at what Eddie did there. Look at what the British Boxing Commission did there. We need to do that going forward. What a model of integrity right there. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So what I'm suggesting here is Chris Eubank Jr. still wants to fight. Conor Benn obviously still wants to fight. Let the two dudes settle it. Oscar Valdez, right? He tested positive before the Conte Sal fight. What happens? Fight still happens. What happens after that? Oscar Valdez gets maybe a gift decision, and then Oscar Valdez goes on and gets a bigger payday against Shakur Stevenson. What are we doing? What are we doing? And there seems to be a lot of, if it's my favorite promoter, we won't pay attention to it. If it's his favorite promoter, we're going to troll the hell out of him. If it's his favorite fighter, we're going to troll the hell out of him. If it's my favorite fighter, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. Forget about that. There's no consistency in this across the board. And it's what I learned after we broke that story 10 years ago is I learned that the boxing journalists are not a beacon of integrity. I learned that right away because we broke the story. We're being raked over the coals for it as nobody confirms it for 2-3 hours. And then later on, ESPN, Fight Hype, Boxing Scene, they break the story that we broke 3 hours ago. We were being raked over the coals for because we're too small to break that story. And there's no way that's true. You're a nobody. So I knew that the journalists are scum, both old media and new media. I know the fans' true intention because during that whole process, they're asking us, is the fight still on? Is the fight still on? It's not, what did he test positive for? It's not, oh, we need to get rid of Eric Morales. We need to ban him for life. No, it's, is the fight still on? Is the fight still on? So other than the virtue signaling out there, the fans just care about the fights. And I can't blame them because I'm the same way. These dudes are so inactive that when you're talking about canceling a fight, we had no fights last week, and it's like, dude, it's one of my other issues with the whole drug testing thing that I brought up a decade ago. I got raked over the coals for. It's Floyd Mayweather is out there. All of a sudden, Manny Pacquiao comes in the picture, and he's going to start this crusade for a safe and clean sport against drugs. He comes out and he's all of a sudden Nancy Reagan, just say, no, we don't need any. And all the same, his fighters in his gym are testing positive for performance enhancing drugs. And all the same, his advisor, I see behind the scenes, is trying to sweep positive A samples under the rug until after the fight happens. That way he can still get his money. And I'm like, no, this ain't adding up. This ain't adding up. Nobody is what they're saying they are from top to bottom. So it just got to the point where I was like, you know what? It's a circus act. This whole thing's on the spectrum. Just give me the fights. Just give me the fights. And that's where I'm at with this. And you got to at least give me that. You can call me whatever you want, but at least I'm consistent in that. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame. Sosa, McGuire. I'm glad Morales got in the Hall of Fame. I'm glad Mosley's in there. I'm glad Canelo will be. Put him in. Put him in. There's no way to monitor this, fellas. There's just no way. It's rotten and corrupt to the core, so you can't trust the overseers. I bet you do think that the tax money that you give the federal government is going towards good things as well, right? You can't trust the overlords to do the right thing. They're rotten to the core. So you expect these dudes running the sport of boxing to do the right thing when a dude tests positive for a performance-enhancing drug. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I've seen it. I've seen it in real time. And I know it's across the board. It's not just Al Heyman that I saw a decade ago. It's not just Eddie Hearn in this situation. It's across the board, and it's from top to bottom. It's corrupt. And at some point, you just have to decide, do I want to continue to follow this sport or not? And it goes back to why I've been absent for 9 days on this channel. I just don't want to bleed on people. I don't want to be negative. I want to talk about positive things as well. I don't want to be the dude on here, man, just talking bad about boxing. I've seen it. I've been there. I've been that dude. And I've had other content creators say, Calix, you need to reel it in. You need to reel it in. It's frustrating for me, but they're right. They're right. I need to reel it in. When I talk about fighter inactivity, that's the big crusade for me. Dudes need to be more active. And I have people telling me, Calix, and people high up, Calix, is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So you have to decide, Calix, do you want to keep going on your channel and railing against this? Calix, you need to decide, do you want to continue to be a broken record on fighter inactivity, or do you want to just accept the way things are? As my mom said back in the day, things are the way they are, deal with it. Be realistic, make your choices from there, and deal with it. And that's where I'm at. I'm still going to follow boxing. I'm still going to get on here and create content. I just have to pivot on the way I do it. That way I don't come off as negative, go on these rants. And what I'm telling you is my position this weekend is, and look, for me, it's good either way, because I'm going down the road to Tiger Stadium and watching my Tennessee Volunteers hopefully beat LSU. I'm throwing a party at my house Saturday night. So Saturday, I'm good regardless. And I'll watch Sebastian Fundora on my phone fight Ocampo, because I appreciate Sebastian Fundora, even though I hate the hell out of his advisor. And I think his advisor is going to stunt his growth. But I love Fundora. You can't spell Fundora without fun. I think it's a travesty that I have people hitting me up saying, look at the 4 free tickets I got to the Fundora fight. Look at me being comped. Sam Watson is hitting me up telling me I can have a free hotel room in LA for the fight. It's a travesty, because Fundora, like I said, is fun and he should be a draw there. But he's not, because he's not being properly promoted. Once again, I'm getting on a negative rant, but either way, it's going to be good for me, but it will be better for me if I'm back on the road from Baton Rouge and I'm watching on my phone as I'm in the passenger seat. I'm watching Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. Because I'm realistic enough to know from past experience, from instinct, that this isn't going to be cleaned up. I said it a decade ago. There's no way. There's just no way to fix it. It's not realistic. It's not realistic. And on top of that, when it goes back to Mayweather, it was clear that that was an excuse to push the Pacquiao fight off, push it off, push it off, push it off. And that was my big issue, is we already have enough obstacles in the sport of boxing. This guy's with Top Rank, that guy's with Golden Boy. This guy's with Al Heyman over at the PBC, this guy's with Eddie Hearn at Matchroom. And now you throw the networks in the mix. Since they all have deals with networks, this guy's with Showtime, this guy's with HBO, this guy's with DAZN, we can't do those fights. And then my point back then was 10, 12 years ago, you're throwing more Bloods and Crips into the situation, because now we're talking about VADA versus USADA, WADA, NADA, DATA, CLADA, whatever you want to talk about. Different drug testing. This guy wants to deal with VADA. This guy has a relationship with USADA. And then knowing behind the scenes that these guys are comfy cozy with USADA and that they're getting positive tests swept under the rug. And my point back then is, not only is this a detriment to getting the fight to the finish line, it's a detriment to even the negotiation room. It's a detriment now. It's an obstacle to get these guys to sign on the dotted line and agree to fight each other. It's an extra obstacle. And once again, I'll pose the question to the chats, the archives, the people watching live, whatever. What gets us closer to an equal playing field? Is it this, the direction we keep heading on? Are you naive enough to think that there's going to be some central body that comes along that can regulate all this, and that Eddie Hearn is going to all of a sudden become honest overnight, that Al Heyman is going to become honest overnight, and they're all of a sudden not going to be looking out for their pocketbook, and they're going to be looking out for the betterment of the sport? Al Heyman doesn't care enough about the boxing world to come out and do an interview. And you think he's going to worry about the betterment of the sport of boxing? I learned that when it came to transparency with Al Heyman back then. There was no transparency as to the A sample, as to the drug testing. There was no transparency there. We learned last week there's no transparency when it comes to Al Heyman to the expenses of a fight. We learned that from the report Friday when it came to Bud Crawford. So we know, sure as hell, as fans, we're not going to get any transparency. If the B side in negotiations can't get transparency, we have no luck as fans of getting any type of transparency. So what creates a more even playing field? Is it the road we keep going down, or is it just getting drug testing? And that's not realistic either, because they're not going to do that. But I'm just throwing that out there theoretically. Is the current model is unfair to the poor fighters. It just is. Wealthy fighters, rich fighters making well into the six figures and seven-figure paydays, multi-seven-figure paydays. They can hire mad scientists who can advise them how to get around these positive drug tests. They can. And I know they're doing it. I know it. This sport is dirtier than you'll ever know, than you'll ever believe. For the people, the baseball purists who think baseball is all of a sudden pure, who are telling me it's impossible for a baseball player to hit 60 home runs in a year now. It's impossible. Now Aaron Judge does it. Nobody bats an eye. But for these poor fighters who can't get around the drug testing because they can't pay for these advisors, they don't know how to skate around positive drug tests. They don't know how to dope like the wealthy fighters and clear it out and make it look clean. They don't have comfy, cozy relationships with the drug administering companies. What do? They continue to watch that gap widen and widen and widen and widen. And these fighters who have an in with all these things and are making the money, they've been coddled from the very beginning. They've been brought up, big contracts, and then once they start making their money, they can start this scam right here. I don't sign up for VADA if you're going to fail. But that's my point, D-Style, is they know how not to fail. And I've been told, man, and I trust these people who tell me this because they have no reason to lie to me. The only way you test positive in today's format is if you're either one, careless, or two, dumb. And that's it. And if you do, it doesn't matter. The event is too big to cancel anyway. One. And two, nobody's going to bat an eye going forward. Like it's going to be fun to troll Conor Benn for a little while for people, but a year from now, 2 years from now, do people really remember Andre Berto testing positive and then saying he got it over at GNC? Like Canelo's still the cash cow of boxing. Do people really remember the tainted meat like that? I mean, really. But I've been told, even with VADA is the best drug testing company out there. Everybody knows that. But I've been told you still have to be dumb or careless to fail a VADA test. I've been told the main reason for fighter inactivity is not fighter safety. It's cycle on, cycle off. So I've been told. Off the record. Cycle on, cycle off. You can cycle off well before your fight camp. And for months and months and months, you still have the benefit of that drug in your system without that drug being traceable for the drug test, even with VADA. And on top of that, you've got these other drugs like a Clomid who can shade these other drugs. Conor Benn, I guarantee you, if Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn have a discussion, it's going to be, I can't believe you didn't cycle on, cycle off properly. I guarantee you. And I guarantee you, Chris Eubank Jr., with this steak video last week on Twitter, when he's eating steak and pointing at the camera and laughing, I guarantee you he's taking shots at Conor Benn, knowing Conor Benn is watching that, and knowing this was Chris Eubank Jr. saying, I got you. I know what you did. Just wait till next week. I know what you did. At 157 ain't 157 anymore. That rehydration clause, 10 pounds, that ain't 10 pounds no more. That rehydration clause is gone. Now watch me eat the steak right in front of your face, Mr. Clomid. I can't believe you didn't cycle off properly, you dummy. I guarantee you if they have a conversation, like a real conversation, wink, wink, that's how it would go. VADA, USADA, WADA, NADA. Doesn't matter, man. You have a corrupt system. Like I said, some of you dudes, some of you dudes who trust this process, maybe you think that the federal government is telling the truth about where your tax dollars are going to. I don't know. You folks think boxing is the only corrupt sport. You're naive. Boxing ain't got nothing to do on the big sports. And it goes back to what you told me on Twitter earlier, Nando. It's Tiger Woods was 185 in college. All of a sudden he pops up as a pro golfer and he's 225 and he's driving the ball and he looks great. Wink, wink. It is what it is. And that's why, like, I don't want to throw out names, man, defamation and all that good stuff, but do we really believe that the top basketball NBA players in the world are 6'8", 6'9", 250, 260 pounds playing 82 games per year without getting injured and everything's on up and up? Do we really believe that just because these dudes are hopping in a hyperbolic chamber? Do we really believe that? I mean, I'm starting to think some of you dudes still believe in Santa Claus. I don't know what to tell you. Aaron Judge all of a sudden pops up and has a 62 home run season. Really? Really? And all I'm saying, my position on it, my official position is I don't care. I don't care. And that keeps me consistent. I don't care if Canelo did it. I don't care if Oscar did it. I don't care if Shane did it. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me. It doesn't stop me from enjoying the sport and enjoying the fighters. I'm resigned to where it is, and I'm realistic about it. I don't care if Barry Bonds' head grew, his nuts shrank, couldn't perform in the bedroom, because all of that's out there, by the way. You can go look at the Balco scandal and see everything that was going on with Barry Bonds at the time, the back knee, all that stuff. All I'm saying is I enjoyed the hell out of that year. You know, Barry Bonds, the fact that this dude is not in the Hall of Fame is an embarrassment to the sport of baseball. They put Big Papi in, and Big Papi failed the same that same cluster of drug tests that came out, 106 players or whatever it was in 2003. Big Papi was in there along with Barry Bonds. Big Papi's in because he's likable. Once again, we go back to journalists being journalists. But Barry Bonds that year, I still can't believe it's one of the greatest stats I've seen in sports history. This dude 40% of his at-bats were either a home run or a walk. 4 out of 10 times this dude stepped to the plate that season, over 162 game season, and he had a home run or a walk. Barry Bonds. I don't care if his head grew 5 times over. There's a reason I don't follow baseball anymore. But you put another Barry Bonds out there, I'm following the hell out of that. 40% of the time, this dude had a home run or a walk when he went up to the plate that year. 94% of the games he played in, he got on base. And this dude's not in the Hall of Fame. What a joke. He was already a 40-40 player before his head grew 10 sizes over. But my official position is there's no way. The overseers will never let us know. Hell, the NBA, the documentary's out there. When Donaghy was busted, they nipped that in the bud right away. There were multiple NBA referees who were fixing games. Donaghy wasn't the only guy. The NBA came and cut that out right away and silenced everybody. The overseers of these sports are not going to allow the truth to get out there. So what I'm suggesting to people is stop worrying about it. What I'm suggesting to people is Conor Benn test positive for a female infertility drug. My position on it is, what's that dude's name? Now a girl that said, "Leave Britney alone." With the Britney Spears thing, leave Britney alone. That's what I'm like now. Leave Conor alone. Leave Conor alone. Let them fight. Let them fight. They both want to fight. Let them fight. There's no way of us realistically knowing if Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs on the up and up. There's no way of us knowing. We'll never know. Ever. We'll never know. They're not going to allow us to get that. Do we really believe that all of a sudden baseball became a clean sport? That the NBA players, all these NBA players who are 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 250 pounds are playing a 82-game season and not getting injured and putting up these crazy stats? Are we really going to believe that? That NBA is clean? That boxing is clean? That Conor Benn's the only one out there doing it? Do you think, I'll pose this to the chat, do you really believe that of all the fighters on this card on Saturday, that Conor Benn's the only one juicing? Is that y'all's official position? That of all the fighters on this card on Saturday, and throw the Sebastian Fedora Ocampo card out there too, and throw the card out there the next weekend, Plant, Durrell, Wilder, Helenius, do you think out of all those cards that Conor Benn's the only one on performance-enhancing drugs? I'm just trying to give you another angle to look at, because I understand how this is going to be seen by some people. I get it. I'll be called every name under the book. It's fine. I'll take the arrow. I don't care. I'm not trying to be a journalist or anything like that. I don't care. But I don't know how else to look at this at this point. The question that Eddie Hearn asked a couple weeks ago, what's the point of drug testing if the fighters are going to fight anyway after they pop? And now he's saying something completely different, as every promoter does. I've been asking that question for a decade, and I still don't have an answer. So it comes to the point now where I just got to be like, you know what? I'm going to kick my feet up. I hope the fight happens Saturday. Remember the Bad News Bears when they went to the Astrodome? Let them play. Let them play. Let them play. That's how I'm with this fight. I feel like flying over to the UK, hopping in front of that stadium and saying, "Let them fight. Let them fight. Let them fight." I hope they fight. I hope they fight. I don't know what the answer is to this whole issue in boxing with PEDs. I'm not going to pretend to know what the answer is. All I'm telling you is Boxing is not a clean sport. I don't think it ever will be. I think you got to try to get the fights when you have the fights. Conor Benn is the only welterweight in the world, I'll say it again, who has anything planned right now. He's the only welterweight in the world with a fight scheduled. And then he tests positive for a female infertility drug. That's the sport of boxing. The welterweight division right now sums up where the sport of boxing is today. And we just have to accept it. As I've been told, I need to accept when it comes to inactivity in boxing, and knowing that I need to be realistic and we'll never have fighters consistently fighting 2 to 5 times per year. Again, we'll never have another pound for pound king fight 5 times in a year like Oscar did in 97. We'll never have a top 10 pound for pound fighter list where they fight a combined 28 times in a year. Again, we're never going to have it again. I've been told that. So I'll apply that same logic here. We'll never have a clean sport. We just won't. The overseers aren't going to allow it. They're not. They'll never look out for the betterment of the sport over their pocketbook. It's not going to happen. So we need to take the fights when they're there. And Conor Benn versus Eubank Jr. is a good fight. It's a good fight. In my official position, I'm not going to put words in anybody else's mouth. My official position is let the dudes bang it out. Let Conor Benn, let Chris Eubank Jr. get his exceptions, get his concessions. Let him beat the hell out of Conor Benn's team in negotiations the next couple of days and let him have it out. And people can say what they want about me for it, but that's my official position. I'll put it out there. I'm always transparent. I'll put it out there. That's my official position. And the welterweight division pretty much sums it up. One fighter that's active, one fighter that has something scheduled, and he just tested positive for a female infertility drug. And the other 9 fighters have nothing planned. That's where we are. And that's why we can't have nice things. And you can't expect the people responsible for that to look out for the betterment of the sport over their pocketbook. You can't. You can't let the people responsible for having 90% of a top 10 in the division with nothing planned. That should never happen. The welterweight division pretty much sums it up. 70% of the fighters are undefeated, which should never happen. 70% of the fighters in the division should never be undefeated. That's an embarrassment to the sport of boxing. Everybody involved with that should be embarrassed. 90% of a division should never be nothing on the schedule. Shouldn't happen. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And the only fighter that has something planned is fighting in a catchweight fight with a middleweight, another dumpster juice division. And these are both traditional sexy divisions, and they're both dumpster juice divisions right now. And you want me to cheer for this fight to be canceled when he's the only welterweight that's active right now? Like I said, I hope what happens is Chris Eubank Jr. destroys Conor Benn in concessions the next couple of days. I hope he gets well into the 6 figures of concessions. I hope he says you got to fight at the full middleweight limit. I hope he comes in as a cruiserweight, and I hope these dudes bang it out on Saturday night. That's what I hope happens. People can say what they want about that. Doesn't bother me. I don't care. But I appreciate y'all tuning in. More positive content coming in the future, and a different type of content coming as well. That's going to lead to more positive content. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Hopefully we have a fight to talk about. I was looking forward to talking about the betting odds and all that good stuff. So hopefully we have a fight to talk about. British Boxing Commission, do the right thing. Let these guys fight. I'm out. Peace.